Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
"Hey dude, you too must be from Marin."
Marin County's A-OK, from Tam to Stinson all the way to MA. Fresh organic veggies in the market every day.
Welcome to the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball based in lovely Marin County, California. I am Duffy Ballard. I am a co-host of the Run TMC podcast, and with me momentarily will be Coach David Levine. But first, this is Season 3, Episode 6 of our podcast. Our podcast focuses on the sport of basketball, and in this episode, we are going to dive deep into one of the tools that did not exist when Dave and I were playing high school basketball many years ago, and that is the ability to film in real time practices and games and then turn them into stats, analytics, and clips to get better. An amazing treasure trove of tools for coaches and players alike. So, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you for a little discussion on how you use the tool of Hudl.
Thank you, Duff. Nice to hear from you. Hey, everybody, it's Dave Levine. We're excited to share this episode of the Run TMC podcast. This is a really fun one with our good friend, Adam Gouttierre. We'll get to Adam in a minute. But first, to address Duffy's question of how we use Hudl. Hudl is a pretty ubiquitous among high school coaches, players, parents. By the way, this whole thing, Hudl is not a sponsor. This is not a big advertisement for Hudl, but we thought it was an interesting topic, and we thought Adam was just a fantastic guest. But also, it's just broader discussion of using technology, analytics, video, and all the tools at our disposal to make something that historically was very cumbersome and time intensive, like breaking down video for both, evaluating your own performance, but also for scouting, for recruiting, all that stuff. And tools like Hudl, and there are other offerings out there as well. It's just made it so much easier and efficient, and it's a great development. But so the main ways that I use Hudl as a coach and our teams use it, I'd say there are 4 main prongs. One, obviously, we use it as a teaching tool and an evaluator of our own performance. So we video our games. In some cases, we'll even video practices. And then we'll sit down with our team or with individuals and we'll review, okay, how are we doing offensively? Why is this action not working? Or why did you miss 7 shots in the fourth quarter last week? Well, let's look at those shots. And we can isolate those specific plays and put it into a playlist and sit down with Jenny and go through, okay, maybe your feet weren't set, or maybe your knees weren't bent, or whatever the reason was. And you can say it all you want, but when you show somebody something and visually they see it, it's much more powerful. So Hudl is a great tool to evaluate and teach your own team's performance. Second obvious use case is scouting. So as we're preparing for an upcoming opponent, we will often get their games on Hudl, share with other coaches, and review their tendencies and what they run and who their key players are. So it's a great scouting tool. Coaches love to use video to scout, obviously, and they'll show their teams. Some coaches love to show their players a lot of video. Some want to kind of limit how much their kids look at, and they maybe want the kids to more focus on their own performance and not worry as much about who they're playing. That's a coach by coach issue, but Hudl's a great tool for that. The third prong is recruiting. We talk about this a lot with Adam today. Hudl has totally changed the way that kids can get their name out there, share video with college coaches, and it's a huge part of the recruiting process across a variety of sports. And then the last thing that I personally love is it's a great way for parents to watch their kids play if they can't make it to the game. So Hudl offers live streaming And, if your kid's on the JV volleyball team and it's 4:00 on a Wednesday and you're at work or you're on a road trip, you can log in and stream the game and be a part of it. And so Hudl helps build that community. So it's a really powerful tool. We were really excited to sit down with Adam and discuss it. And I thought it was a very fun conversation. We'll get to that in a minute. But Duff, that's how I use Hudl. And I think it's an awesome thing. Back to you, my friend.
Thank you, Coach. That was an excellent summary of the utility of Hudl. Thorough, as always. And because it's Thanksgiving week, Coach, I want to appreciate thanks for you and for being my co-host on this podcast. We're now in season 3. Nobody thought we could do it, but here we are. And hopefully we'll keep going. So thank you, Coach. Keep up the good work. And I just have a few additional thoughts on this episode and on Hudl. First of all, Jenny, why is Jenny shooting the ball 7 times in the fourth quarter if she's not making any of those shots? I'm not sure necessarily whether Hudl is going to fix this. This might be a Jenny problem, might be a coach problem. But anyway, you'll fix it. You'll fix it, Coach. I definitely trust you. Second of all, I really do wish that Hudl was around back in our days, Dave, when we were playing in high school many eons ago, because it would have been such a useful tool for scouting. I mean, it's one thing to scout another team and say, number 30 is a great shooter. Okay, we got to close out on number 30. That's one thing, but if you can say that and then show some clips and your guys, especially the guy or gal that is guarding number 30, can see where they like to get their shots from, what their release looks like, whether they're coming off screens, whether they like to shoot off the dribble, do they have a bit of a hitch, what happens if you get in their body a little bit. All of that you can see with video and clips on Hudl, and that allows you to better defend that player. And for number 30, you can start to look at how teams are defending you and figure out how you might alter your approach to make sure you get open shots. So for a thinking player, a thinking team, a thinking coach, it is such an amazing tool. And anyone out there, at least at the high school level, who's not using it is probably at some degree of a competitive disadvantage. Third, Dave, we got into this in the interview, so I'm not going to recap it, but I really got a kick out of the origin story for Hudl that I had no idea about. And you and I are fans of the podcast Acquired. And the first part of this interview felt a little bit like a mini Acquired episode. Of course, Acquired, the podcast, goes on sometimes for 5 hours. So this was a little micro Acquired. But that was fascinating. Adam did a great job of breaking down the history of the founding of this company, which is a company that is far younger than you and I, and actually even younger than our kids. So that was cool. And then, Dave, I'm going to just leave you with a quote here. Change is hard, and changing from the old Hudl experience to the new Hudl experience might be harder, at least for me. I just want to commiserate quickly with those out there that may have put off the toggle from the old experience to the new experience until this past month. And there are maybe a few struggles, a little bit of a learning curve as we're adjusting to the new experience. But Adam assures us there is help out there. Hudl Rep, there are instructional videos. And I imagine very soon, Dave, the new experience is going to be outshining that old experience. Finally, love the nickname. I love the new nickname for you, 5 o'clock, and I love the nickname that we got for Adam after the fact, Gooch. So 5 o'clock and Gooch, let's take it away.
All right. Thanks, Duff. Back at you. Very grateful for you and for our Run TMC community, all the listeners, coaches, players who tune in on their dog walks. Thanks to our guests, both former and future. And as always, thanks to our sponsors. This is a really fun interview with our friend Adam Gouttierre. He's the VP of Media at Hudl. I go into Adam's background in the interview, so I will not share anything else as you'll hear about it. But just suffice it to say, he's a Renaissance man. He's a fantastic human being. He's hilarious. He's really smart and thoughtful. He's lived around the world. He's got a lot of stories. And we really enjoyed hearing him tell the story of Hudl and, writ large, the idea of how technology, data, analytics have changed the whole paradigm of youth sports, high school sports, all the way up to the pro level. So we were honored to have the chance to sit down with him, and I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. And then finally, a shout out to our sponsors. We will share some snippets on them right now, but thank you to Encore Custom, the Hub in San Anselmo, Jerry and Rebecca, we love you, and the Nike camps at San Domenico, and our good pal Jeff Skaggs. Please enjoy the interview with Adam, and thanks everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving.
The Run TMC podcast is brought to you by Encore Custom. Encore Custom, from the field to the gym and everywhere in between. Encore Custom designs high-performance team apparel built for athletes, coaches, and active communities. Each piece is crafted with technical precision, modern fits, and customizable details that bring your team identity to life. You can shop their ready-to-wear performance gear online or in-store, or create custom designs made exclusively for your team. Visit EncoreCustom.com, that is EncoreCustom.com, or stop by their headquarters at 891 4th Street in lovely San Rafael, California, to see where performance meets design.
We are sponsored by our friends at The Hub. We love Jerry and Rebecca. Some new menu items that Jerry and Rebecca wanted us to let our listeners know about. The winter salad, the Olima, and a new backyard special, the Lawrence Elk. Very clever. So the Olima salad, this looks amazing. Baby kale and arugula with sliced pear, pomegranate seeds, beets, goat cheese, red onion, crunchy pecans with house-made maple Dijon vinaigrette. Sign me up. And then the Lawrence Elk, cleverly named. 100% ground elk patty, caramelized onions, point-raised blue cheese, crumbles, mushrooms, butter lettuce, and sriracha chili mayo on the classic sesame seed bun. The Hub is an awesome place, great beer selection, awesome burgers, awesome salads, great people, and kind of our ad hoc home away from home, as we've had 2 roundtables now at the Hub. So thanks, Jerry and Rebecca, for letting us invade your outside patio and descend upon you with our team of coaches and players. Thank you to the Hub for your support. Everybody get over there, get some food, get some drinks, and enjoy. Thanks. All right, we're going. Adam Gouttierre, welcome to Run TMC podcast.
Sweet. Good to be here. Heard a lot.
Hi, Adam.
Duff, what's going on? Good to see you again.
Yeah, this is awesome. We last met and only met at Dave's 50th birthday that we've talked about a few times now. That came 10 months after the actual birthday, but it was worth it. Worth the wait.
Worth the wait. I love the American Legion Hall sort of setting. That was brilliant.
It was lovely. We met in lovely Larkspur, California. So we're very excited to have my good buddy Adam Gouttierre on. Adam is a fantastic human. We could talk to him about a variety of topics. He's a music guy. He's a sports guy. He's a connoisseur of dive bars. He's a Renaissance man, but really why we have Adam is his day job, which he's basically the VP of media at Hudl, and our listeners will know Hudl. Adam and I met in business school at Berkeley back in 2004, Adam? Yeah?
Yes.
04. He's had a fantastic post-MBA life. He worked at Microsoft up in Seattle, and then he's a Nebraska native. He moved back home and joined Hudl 11 years ago, and he's been in the kind of lead chair as this business has exploded over the last 11 years, and that's what we want to talk about with Adam. At the end, though, we're going to talk a little bit about another part of Adam's life story, which is fascinating, which we'll get to. His dad coached basketball in Afghanistan, has an incredible story. And ironically and coincidentally, Duffy's brother, Chris Ballard, wrote an article about Adam's dad in Sports Illustrated, which we'll put in the show notes. It's one of the best articles I've ever read. We're going to get to that. But to start, Adam, we want to talk about Hudl. As you know, a lot of our listeners are basketball nerds, coaches, players, parents. People have used Hudl, become a household name in high school sports. why don't you take us back to the beginning? How did Hudl start, and kind of what was the original impetus behind this business?
Yeah, I'm going to try to play the three founders. That's Brian, John, and David, who's our CEO and is still leading the company. And David in particular, he was an intern at the University of Nebraska football within that program. And for your Bay Area fans, the head coach at that time was Bill Callahan, formerly of, I think, the Raiders.
Raiders,
And Bill,
of course.
yeah. Yes. Bill Callahan was a lab rat. He was not Tom Osborne, which for Nebraskans, that was always a challenge, but really brilliant in terms of thinking about video and how video as a teaching tool can help coaches. And back then, you would, capture the video, put it on a DVD, give an 18-year-old running back the DVD, and just hope he would look at it, right? And guess what? They kind of wouldn't. And David and the team, they were in a computer engineering program / business at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So they were thinking through their next life, right? But it kind of bringing engineering and business together. And so they came up with a mousetrap for helping Coach Callahan to solve that pain of getting people to watch video as a teaching tool to get better at sport. And it sounds obvious right now, but one of the key triggers was just getting video into the cloud and watching video in the cloud from anywhere, whether it's your dorm room, with on the field even. And that was the beginning of the idea of Hudl. And it's sort of a kind of a cool thing in that Hudl today is the same thing. It's like, how can we solve someone's pain? How can we make the easy button for our persona? And this was Coach Callahan. He's like, man, I want to get film to my athletes. And furthermore, it's like the assistant coach is like, I want to just get the film that counts to my tight ends. I just want to get the film that counts to my running backs. And along with that earlier version of Hudl were playlists and play diagrams. And prior to that, you had the binder of 80, 90 pages.
Sure.
And you're going on the Xerox on Thursday night, the assistant coach. And I remember one assistant coach telling us, you're saving my marriage because I'm not spending 2 hours a night making Xerox copies of the tight end play diagrams. It's right there. So that's sort of the genesis here in Nebraska, where we're based, still solving pain for coaches and assistant coaches to teach better and to really get to fulfill the athlete journey as well.
So we're doing, like, Duffy and I both are fans of the Acquired podcast. Their reach is a little bit wider than ours. But so we're going to do like a mini Acquired here. So Hudl has become just ubiquitous among high schools. I mean, I saw some interview with one of the founders recently said he thinks that there's like 99% of the high schools use Hudl. I think that's probably low, is my guess. How did that happen? Like, is it just purely viral, like word of mouth, or did you guys throw a lot of money at a sales force to go out and call on different high schools? Like, how did you grow this business within the high school community?
Yeah. And if cool, I'll do the connective tissue from Callahan to that question. Yeah. And so, unfortunately for Coach Callahan, he was not Tom Osborne and didn't have 11 games winning every year, right? And so made the difficult choice of the school to let him go. And he actually, for his next job, he used Hudl as sort of part of the interview process. And that was with the New York Jets. And that was the year the Jets were on Hard Knocks. And that was also the year that Brett Favre was a star in the Hard Knocks of Jets. And he was using Hudl periodically, which was cool for us and the founders at the time as a kind of a new company, right? But as you might guess, a lot of NFL teams follow each other. And so started getting early business because they saw Hudl on Hard Knocks. One challenge of the NFL, 32 teams, and the sales cycle is really tight, right? So David and his leadership team, I wouldn't say the word pivot, right? But we're like, what's the other vertical? And that's high school. That's high school football. And that's the state of Texas, which is almost like the NFL, right? And like I mentioned earlier about how important putting video in the cloud, another really important trigger point is the ability to exchange video. And think back, 15 years ago, still, when you had to exchange video, the lowest guy on the high school football team, he would have to take the DVD and drive to small town X to meet the other lowest guy on the football team and at McDonald's at 7 a.m. on a Saturday to exchange film. It's mandated at the high school level. And one of the great things that Hudl brought was the ability to exchange football film with the push of a button. And so from an acquired perspective, the network effects really took in that every assistant coach was like, hey, why aren't you in Hudl? Why aren't you in Hudl? You really can save a lot of this workflow, in this case, driving 3 hours, right?
Right.
And a lot of coaches love film. Yes.
Just to go back to something you just said. So in Texas, they required, is it under law that film was shared between high school football teams?
Yeah. So
Okay.
every state's got their own state association, high school state association that covers all sports. And so from that football perspective, that is what the requirement is, to exchange film. And, it's like not enforced with punitive, but it's sometimes sometimes you ran out of gas to exchange that film,
Right.
try to get it a little later, right?
Well, that speaks to the importance of high school football in Texas, right? Because I don't think in California there's any mandate to exchange film across any sports that I'm aware of. So that's an interesting little side note.
It's gone from mandate to expectation, and
Exactly.
their coaches, as you as fellow coaches, but your coaches listen, it's like they just give me the damn film, right? And they just love to be able to scout the next game, want to see once that minute that one game ends, they're always thinking about the next game, and scouting film is so critical to the power of Hudl and for coaches.
So initially,
So we had a network effect,
Well-
and that got a lot teams on faster. We acquired some companies within those early times that were kind of doing similar ideas, but that was more of a customer acquisition, and sort of kind of grew exponentially in the football space. What was fun and exciting was in the coaches lounge, the basketball coach, both boys and girls, were like, "What's this Hudl thing? How can we? I'd like to do this, please, right?" And one of the challenges with the platform is, particularly football, it's an event-based sport. Stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, right? So it's very clip-based, where basketball and soccer is a flow-based, right? And it's tough to, you don't want to clip it because you don't want to ruin it. But basketball coaches were using Hudl to just film and look, but it was sort of shoehorned, if you will. So that was our next kind of big movement, is to invest in a version of the platform that could account for flow sports. And that allowed us to expand within the high school from just one sport to the next.
We had a college coach on, a friend of ours named Paul Trevor, who's a Division II coach, great coach, but he was talking about, he was an assistant at the Division I level back in the day at USF. And he was talking about being in the dingy, coach's lounge late at night, literally copying tape to tape, DVD, tape to DVD, to put it in the mail to send to the team that they're playing, doing the advanced scout work. And just that, it was hours and hours. And now, with Hudl, and there are others, there's synergy at the college level that does the same thing. But it's just the advent of this technology has changed a lot of lives of assistant coaches.
It's a great point too, Dave, in that the other part where the sort of another trigger is they would do the same thing for athletes and parents. And so they would help them get recruited. And so a lot of times they were not only cutting film for the betterment of the team, but those poor coaches were also cutting film to help their athletes get recruited, whether it's to UCF or to Stanford or to Fresno State. And that was a big important aspect of when the athletes started using the Hudl platform to create their clips into highlights to send them to recruiters. And that saved a lot of workflow for coaches, athletes, and parents. And it also saved a lot of work for recruiters. So then on the other side of this, a recruiter doesn't have to go to rural Montana, then rural Nebraska, back to Southern Cal to see 3 different folks in a weekend, right? They would subscribe, or their university, to Hudl to start looking at the recruits more efficiently this way.
Yeah. So now, obviously the platform has expanded to hit on exactly what you talked about. So coaches, players, everybody uses this. They use it to look at their own film and evaluate their own performance. They use it to scout their upcoming opponents. And it's really been useful for players through the recruitment process to get their name out there. They put together a package on Hudl, send it to coaches, put it on social media to get some awareness out there. I mean, if you were to guess how much of your platform is used for
evaluation of the team versus scout versus recruit? I mean, is it kind of a balanced mix, or what would you say is the most frequent use of it?
It's tough, right? Because the way we think about it, those are three different personas. Those are the coach persona, the athlete persona, and then the recruiter persona. And so we have to try to think through workflows that makes each of their lives easier, so they can just focus on what that persona's functionality is. The coaching one, it's sort of like, what's kind of cool is like, it's kind of choose your own adventure on where you want to go on how much you're looking internally at your team versus externally on the next game. Another inflection point is the video plus the data. And our mission is make every moment count. And that goes back to the teaching aspect of Hudl, because the old Vince Lombardi days of black and white, and you watch the full 3 hours, right? That our platform wants to find those moments that count to make their teaching and their a lot more efficient. And when we bring that together, you got tendency reports, it's like Duff does really good on shooting from the right. He's 4 for 5 inside the paint. Levine is 0 for 10, 3-pointer on the left, and he's 1 for 1 on the right. We probably need to start running offenses because he's a little bit of a hindrance on the left side of the offense to the right. So you can see how so many different iterations of when video and data gives you those moments that count. And remember, count is not all the success. It's those teaching moments where, you know what? This is how we get better, right? So when you think about this coach who loves to teach, you could spend 90% on the internal part and trying to find, those nuggets that are like, this is it, right? But the scouting part's the real fun, right? It's almost like you're a detective. And particularly you look at the past footage of who you're playing next, and you start to understand their story. You start to understand who's their top gun. You start to understand their out of bounds plays from underneath the hoop on side, right? You start to understand their formations, and then you start teaching the future and how to kind of counterplay what you think might be coming.
Yeah, I'd love the charts, the shot charts that you're talking about, Adam, as a coach, because it is such a great teaching tool. It's very visual. You can put it up in front of the entire team, and then you can show, all right, well, we were 80% on layups from the right side, but we were 50% on layups or close shots on the left side. We need to work and practice about finishing on the left. And then what we did last year was we were really emphasizing like only 5 to 10 at most mid-range shots a game. That's our goal. And so we would look and we'd see what the chart looked like, and we'd say, all right, we are 3 for 10 on this mid-range 2. What's the points per possession of this shot versus these other ones that we got? And I think it was really valuable to drive home, this is a shot where it might be the best shot you get, but we're not hunting the shot. And then you go and you can individually clip up for players. All right, here's all the mid ranges you missed, and you send those, to the player alone and say, all right, just take a look at these. Tell me as a coach what you think about these shots, and whether they were the best shot you could get. And so, such a valuable tool. Now, of course, not all players take that well initially, but I think if you frame it, and I can't say I've always framed it maybe as well as I could, but if you frame it and you follow up and say, this is a teaching tool, this is not judgment of you. Yeah, such an amazing way to bring home points about changing rather than the old school approach of just yelling at someone, that was a horrible shot, and now they can see it and they can see the context and they can play it a few times and they can understand. So just amazing.
I have going that little bit. Just Coach Ballard nailed it in terms of it helps strengthen that coach-athlete kind of dialogue versus, and it's like, these are just the facts, right? Video don't lie, data don't lie. And so it's like, you might have thought this, but let's just take a look at it. Oh, and then you can talk it through. Well, the other cool thing about it, when you bring the athlete in, and there's many athletes are already coaching themselves and will bring up, you know what, coach, I need to work on my mid game, my mid game game, because I can tell I'm rushing it, and my field goal percentage is 30% lower than when I'm over on the wing shooting open threes. So that's when it gets doubly excited, when the athlete's also coaching within and bringing the feedback loop to the coach proactively.
One thing I'd like to point out, even though I was 0 for 10 from the left side, I don't know if Hudl detects that my personality is phenomenal. But I'm a glue
You had
guy.
the seven most chill air balls. I think that's what the report was. These are the seven most chill air balls
Yeah,
we've seen
okay.
this week, right? Yeah.
And 3 out of
Super
10
chill.
times you ran your hand through your hair and just kind of just nailed like, that little look you got, Dave, where it stands up straight as if it's static electricity. So 3 out of 10 times after
Yeah,
you missed, you looked good.
The hair's not good today. I mean, I
That's
don't
it.
know.
That's
I don't
it.
know if the AI detects that I'm a cool hang, right? Like, I mean, I think that should be part of the package. So, Adam, I want to follow up on one thing you said. So, when you're talking about how the system is analyzing, okay, here's their typical baseline out of bounds play. We're playing, whatever high school, and this is what they run in this situation. It seems like so you've been there 11 years. Obviously, AI has been around for a long time. It's become obviously everything in the world the last couple of years, but the AI system, it seems like it almost becomes a coach. I mean, is that kind of fair to say? Like Hudl can be in some ways like an assistant coach to a head coach as they're analyzing stuff. I mean, discuss that. What does the system do in terms of recommendations on specific coaching ideas?
So to your point, AI has been it's not a new trend, right? It's been around for a while, and we've been utilizing it for a while. And you can utilize it in a lot of different ways. And tomorrow there's going to be some new ways, right? And the one of the I think critical things. Go back to your reflection point question, Dave, in that we noticed that we knew early on. To film the game, you probably need an iPad, you probably need an assistant coach, you need an HD camera. And what does that all mean? That means Friday Night Lights gets filmed first within high school, maybe varsity X, Y, and Z, girls basketball, boys basketball, right? But that freshman B volleyball team doesn't have an assistant coach, doesn't have a parent team. And so one of the big things we did is we invested we acquired a camera company, then built that out. It's called our Hudl Focus cameras. And they're indoor, they're outdoor, they're portable, they're flexible, meaning it could be for softball now, focus point, baseball, where you need 3 or 4 different camera angles. It all has machine learning on the edge. And why is that important at the initial? Back to that freshman B volleyball team, all you have to do is schedule the game and the camera turns on, right? And then the camera starts following the action. So that freshman B volleyball coach and that athlete have as much right to video and data and moments that count as that varsity football Friday Night Lights quarterback. Yeah, Duff.
Yeah, you should probably bring me on to promote the product more broadly. But I'm just going to say Hudl Focus. I love that because I can be in practice and like coach is about to do something new, put in a play, whatever it is. I'm just on my phone, and within 15 seconds, I can start a recording. It can be on the right side of court, or it can be on the left. It can follow the action, or like I see now that most recently, I can actually zoom in on something. I haven't figured out exactly how to do that without it like moving the camera in crazy ways. But yeah, just really cool tool. Again, it's like all right. We weren't going to record the practice, or if we did, we'd have to sift through like 2 hours to find the spot we wanted. But now it was like, all right, 10-minute recording and just focused. So really cool.
Yeah, and again, we're trying to solve workflows for you. But what was really cool is like that sort of coalesced on we would take the full Hudl offering to the athletic department. And that camera as an enabling tool really helped democratize sport within a high school. And so again, that freshman B volleyball team and coach has as much right and as much ability to take advantage of Hudl, the tool, as the varsity teams. And furthermore, that volleyball varsity coach wants their freshman team on Hudl so they can start seeing growth and development that's a continuum all the way to their last years at high school. But I keep going on where AI keeps on popping up in a great way. Early on, we used AI to make moments that count. And so this is not Coach Levine, but when Coach Duff had his first double-double, right? We're able to see that with the data and then create that personalized highlight for athlete Duff. And then he's able to take that highlight and then share it on social media. Look, I got my first double-double, maybe my first triple-double. And then also it's a component for recruiting. So our mission is make every moment count, and having AI help us find those moments faster and quicker is what our athletes and coaches want us to do. I'm going to jump forward to 2 years ago. We purchased a company called Ball Time, and they're an English company and focus on volleyball. And part of what they did really well is finding moments that count. That is not just data points, but is also able to sort of how we might call more subjective moments that count than just a data point. And it really made the volleyball sport, coaches and athletes, particularly at the elite level, take it to the next level. And part of the Hudl strategy is as we invest in what we call elite, which is professional, college, global, that part of that investment should beget an investment at the competitive level or the high school level, as we call it. And so that's another example of where an investment in AI means get those moments, find those moments as fast as you can, because your coaches and athletes are asking for that. The other point you kind of alluded to, Dave, is like it's kind of sometimes AI is the workhorse to save workflow, so that coach can get to that moment that counts, right? So a lot of ways we would think about AI is like, okay, if it takes 17 minutes to get to that moment that counts, how do we decrease that workflow to 15, to 14, to 13, so that coach, that athlete could spend that extra workflow gained in terms of discovery, education, and solving. And just at the core is like getting all those moments that count, that are relevant, and digesting them in a way that makes you a better coach, a better athlete, even a better fan consuming the content.
So in addition to the smart kind of the AI identifying those moments, another area where Hudl's really useful, and I know Duffy, you're great at this, is Hudl Focus analyzing stats, right? And so discuss how that has progressed.
Wait. Hudl Assist, Dave.
Sorry, Hudl Assist.
Hudl Focus, Dave. Yes, I want to hear about Hudl Assist, and I also want to hear how it is done, because I think it's AI and then a person, but that I would love to hear how it came about and then actually how it works. I'm not going to try and replicate it on my own. I don't have that technical skill. So
we love Hudl Assist, and again, that came from our coaches asking us to invest in that, because video by itself is a beautiful thing, but video plus data is what makes the world sing. And it's interesting. I don't want to go too deep, but I can a little bit in that. In the early days, the Hudl Assist came from the coaches, and they would input it, right? But you can imagine have to spend an hour after the game, sometimes 2 hours, inputting all the data. That's not a workflow they want to do. Hey, Hudl, help me solve this, right? So I don't have to do this. And a lot of times, if you're Coach Levine and you're down by 15 in the fourth quarter, you might I'm not going to finish this, right? Why do I need to finish statting all this, right? So then the athletes, the team, the fans all kind of suffer in that not getting a full data point, right? So then we started investing in full-time sports analysts, and that was their job, right? And not just basketball, but soccer or global football, but across all sports. But that's a whole different sort of investment on our part in terms of having analysts that understand their sport and going to the level of depth, right? And you can imagine if our analysts aren't producing back the data that the coaches expect, we're going to hear that right out of the gate, right? And so that took time to get to the level where we were trusted. And then as we moved beyond trusted, faster, right? 12 hours is too short. I'm on the bus ride home. I want it faster. And so that's where AI is also solving the workflow, that there's a level of data that will get back to you that the camera can just sort of read back, right? But as much as it's not me who's doing this, right? I just call it our seed set, right? So I would make the case, the biggest seed set of sports data on the globe. And that is being trained so that it can get the right data via our AI workflows back to that coach and athlete faster and quicker, but it's got to be 100% accurate. And so depending on the level of data point and its sort of sophistication is also dependent on how fast that gets to you and what it's based on versus machine versus an analyst.
A follow-up question, so I have talked to some coaches, including Kevin Vasquez, who I'm working with now, and he initially said to me, Hudl Assist just not accurate enough. Like he could go back and enhance stat it and would, there would be an assist given that wasn't true or whatever. And I think he's coming around, but and maybe this is more technical than you can comment on, but could you, for coaches out there, are there ways to optimize the recordings so that Hudl Assist is going to be as accurate as possible?
Yeah, as you might guess, there's a lot of different variables on how successful that data point is. One of the reasons why we didn't go to first to market a Hudl Focus outdoor is because football's so wide and you're that much further away from the athlete numbers that it's tough for the camera to say quarterback is 12 and left tackle is 76. Let's apply that data point, right? And so we went to market first with a Hudl Indoor because you can see the athlete data and the athlete jerseys even more so, and the camera angle is more like this versus wide, right? And what you see sometimes, and still to this day, right, is like the athlete-specific data is not 100%. And especially from the camera perspective, and even a sports analyst, and it might be like the team's color they've chosen is like, like red on off red, right? And so it's just difficult to see the exact stuff. It just, it's asking someone to watch the data, right? But we're never going to be 100% accurate for 100% of coaches, but we're getting there, right? And those feedback loops are critical. And sometimes it's the camera angle that just it's tough to read. And sometimes it's not. They want even faster and faster and faster. And we do real time, right? And again, the amount of real time we give, it's dependent on what data source that we can get there at a 100% confidence level versus a 75% confidence level.
Yeah, I've noticed when we try and film on a phone at like a summer league game and input that, it's just not going to be as good up for the individual player as it would be if you're using the camera from the gym that's up above. And like, I think you just go into it knowing that.
But the exciting thing is like the form factor and the capabilities of cameras are evolving as well, right? And so this conversation right now, 18 months from now, it'd be like, oh, remember then, right? Remember back then? And that's exciting.
Adam, one thing that actually Duffy and I have talked about a lot is the idea of stats that maybe aren't tracked as frequently, but that would be useful. I mean, these really nerdy, esoteric things. So to what degree is the system, is Hudl Assist changing? Like, are you getting feedback all the time from coaches giving you suggestions about how about we track, deflections or good shot attempts, open shot attempts versus contested shot attempts, like some of these really in the weeds things, but that would be useful for coaches. But each coach has his or her own weird idiosyncrasies and things that they track. So how often is the system updating with new stats?
Yeah, I love that one. And I sort of alluded to that the platform and the business kind of bifurcates the competitive or high school, and which is also club, and also elite, which is professional and college. And what a team uses at the elite level, Hudl Sports Code, it's what I would say a lot more flexible and a lot more customizable, because like the Golden State Warrior might have, 6 video analysts, right? And they might have and I kind of shorthanded myself, forgive me, but they might have their own Moneyball metric that they have developed and sort of kind of fine tune and sort of make it almost IP within the team. And boom, right? Part of the competitive challenge opportunity is for those high schools, they also teach Latin or world history, right? So sometimes too much customization is too much, if that makes sense, right? And so helping them, it's not standardized, but helping them kind of arrive at a certain set of not just basic tools, but robust, right? That have been sort of tried and true at the larger level. And forgive me to go a little bit off, but we had, this was a while back, but I'll never forget it. We had the sport analyst for FC Barcelona at one of our retreats. He was just going through how he uses variations of Hudl. And part of the visualization he was doing was, this is a whole other conversations, but we have wearables, Wemu and Titan, where now you have athletic performance data sort of as data points to help you think through coaching and performance. And so anyway, you're showing through this diagram, FC Barcelona and their 11 players, and it also had their sort of like payload, performance load. And if you're going 100%, 100% of the time, that's 100%. If you're just kind of sitting around drinking a beer, that's 0%, right? And so they showed the 11 folks, starting lineup. And most of them, don't quote me on this, most of the athletes were somewhere between 75 and 85%. And there's one athlete that was right around, maybe call it about 35% in terms of performance load. Who was that athlete?
Messi.
It was Messi, right? And then, but he would show us,
Thank you.
You get a prize. But he would also show us visually where Messi would sort of migrate to. And he would migrate to these spots, which would attract not one defender, not two defender, but three defenders. So he's almost like the fly in the spider web, right? And so he was trying to attract as many spiders into his orbit and would just sort of slowly get there. And by doing that, he opened up the rest of the team to sort of execute and play offense and set up, because they had a lot more visual, and this way you can see the visual spacing benefit them. And that blew my mind, right? In terms of seeing performance data plus visual spacing. And it was Messi who was the fly that attracted all the spiders, but he set them up for the trap, right? And eventually scored the goal. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's a lot like, and Dave and I have talked about the principle of holding the corner with a shooter in basketball. And if you have an elite corner shooter, they're kind of doing very much the same thing, because the defense has to be weighted towards them a little bit, and then that is setting up more opportunities, bigger gaps on other areas of the floor.
No, you nailed it. And we purchased a company a year and a half back called Fast Model, and they're definitely targeted. Almost every NBA team, WNBA team uses it, and they're great at visualizations. And it's like, as I've been talking, video plus data is to find the moments that count. But you also, the more you can visualize it, gets you even more closer to how you want to teach, how you want to perform. And Fast Model is a great way of doing visual diagramming around that aspect of which you mentioned, Coach Duff.
So for Adam, give us some examples of, like, I remember seeing something online about how Josh Allen is a great example of a player who, from kind of small town, from Fireball, I think, California, right? Middle nowhere.
Yeah.
But gets a scholarship, Wyoming, right? I think.
Yeah.
Obviously now, one of the best quarterbacks in the world, unbelievable player, but Hudl played a role in getting his name out there. Give us other examples of kind of success stories of athletes who have used the Hudl platform to get their name out there.
Yeah, we love the Josh Allen story because he's representative of a lot of millions of athletes in that regard. And just for our fellow folks join this with us, that great quarterback, no limited in stars, right? No recruit, no scholarships. But he had the film there. He had the performance, put together his highlight reels, and just started sending it out and just like, hey, check out my Hudl film, check out my Hudl film, check out my Hudl film. It's kind of fun on Friday nights when you go into X or Twitter. You just, every 7 seconds, hey, check out my Hudl highlights. Hey, check out my Hudl highlights. There's some sort of athlete from across the country getting that out. But that was sort of, there's been commercials of him showing that. It's like, hey, look at me. And that's the beauty of film and data. And then that's why they want it so quickly, is to get it out, right? To tell their story. In this case, Josh was telling a story to get recruited, but a lot of people are just telling their story also to build their brand and to build followers and look at this. And it doesn't have to be, I'm the next Caleb Williams. It could be X, Y, and Z.
Right.
In my community. But the thing that I've seen over time, which is really exciting, and then it's like, this sounded modest, but like every NFL draftee, 99% of them have had a Hudl highlights, right? The only one this past year was the punter from, I think, Australia. But everyone has their Hudl highlights. But what we know for true is that same trend is happening in the NBA. That same trend is happening in the WNBA, where a majority of all of those stars have been on the Hudl platform at some point. The part that we love that, of course, right? But we love when that high school gets a scholarship to that Division III just to continue that journey. And what's been a really great two prongs on this one is, like, Caitlin Clark was on Hudl 9 years ago. Her first highlight she created was to her parents, right? So the next Caitlin Clark, she's on the platform right now.
Right.
And the next Caitlin Clark before that, she's about to be a freshman, and she might join the freshman B basketball team. And that journey will start on Hudl. That gets us excited as well. One more in that, I've used the example of the state of Nebraska, which is started off the story as a football state, right? It's a volleyball state now. And look at all of the, in terms of engagement this past fall, over 50% of the live games were women's sports. A majority of those were volleyball, right? And so thinking through volleyball as a sport and all the young girls, not in just the state of Nebraska, but across the country that use that sport, use that Hudl to get to that next level, which again could be the small college. And that's great, right? They're able to continue that journey to that next level. They don't have to be Josh Allen. They can be, Linda, who's going to play at Chico State. That's awesome.
So this wasn't on the list of topics that we wanted to talk to you about, Adam, but I'll put you on the spot. So when you say volleyball, I think of volleyball, obviously hugely popular, very big out here in California as well. I know Nebraska, it's huge. Club sports have become massive in terms of adoption, players, but also as a business. How do club sports factor into the Hudl universe?
Club sports are huge, and I use that example of ball time. That investment into elite volleyball analytics and part of the platform, that was driven by our club directors in the States, right? And that was them saying, hey, we need this, this, and this from your platform. And that was, and we heard them, right? And so the other thing about club sports are those athletes, whether it's basketball, soccer, volleyball, and now, even baseball, those are the same athletes on the platform that are on when they're in high school. So they're asking us, their parents are asking us, they're more asking their club directors, hey, you need to get on Hudl because my athlete's highlights are at this high school. My athlete's performance are at this high school. I want to be able to see my child's highlights across both high school and club. And the recruiters are the same way. I want to see the full body of work of that athlete across both high school and club. And so club's huge, and how we are smart in integrating that is what, is a good, it's been a challenge for us for 10 years. We've gotten good at it, and we just listen to our customers on that regard.
Yeah. Has the NIL trend, which, obviously NIL, very big in college, changed the whole paradigm of college sports. And now you're starting to see even high school athletes monetize. How has that impacted Hudl's business? I assume it's been a positive, or I don't know.
It's another important paradigm shift that we have needed to adjust to based on the athletes in this regard, right? What is sort of, I'll say complex, some people might say robust, is back to that question, Duff, you had about the state associations. There are 50 different state associations that might be connected to 50 different legislatures. And so how NIL is treated within each state is not equal, right? And so trying to navigate and understand where each state is going with NIL at the athlete level is challenging, right? And so this conversation, what it looks like 18 months from now, it's going to be different. What's been sort of consistent from the beginning is, from us, how do we allow athletes to get the content to make their highlights, not just to get recruited, but in this case, to build their brand, right? And so they'll use their Hudl highlights within social media to build their followers, to build their audience, to when they step on the college level, they have a little bit more, I won't say leverage, but I'll say a following, right? To think through even more monetization opportunities. But yeah, it's a paradigm changer, and it's complex and robust at every state level.
Do you have any advice, Adam, for parents or players who are looking to build out their highlights as they're using the tool? Obviously, their AI is going to help a lot, and it's going to, give them ideas. But if they're digging a little deeper, are there athletes that have had, certain strategy that has worked well for them?
Yeah.
Other than obviously Josh Allen, you mentioned already.
That's a great one. And one of the things is that the first and foremost, just try to get everything filmed, right? Whether it's Hudl or not, just try to get as much as you can to film. And it feels maybe onerous at times, depending on where they are. But it's just like the more video you can get, the more you can help teach, but tell a story, right? And that's why we invest in those cameras to make sure that the parents don't have to worry about that, right? So get as much as you can filmed as possible so you can start building your body of work. And as you think about recruiting, and again, it could be to small town X all the way to Stanford. The one example is just a little bit of name dropping. One example I think is a good one is like Arch Manning. So if you go to Arch Manning, and I forget already his high school, but if you search for Arch Manning when he was in high school in Mississippi, he was a power user of Hudl, and you'll see his highlight page has a variety of different highlights. Some that we created for him based on AI, some that he would create himself based on just a quick hit. And then you'll see like one that's like his sophomore reel. And that sophomore reel is sort of a body of work of like almost 18 minutes long of all of that. So he used that as sort of his recruiting package, if you will. And then if you think about the quick hits, those are almost like the movie trailers. And it's almost like a three-pronged approach. You got the movie trailers, right? Boop, I did this. Come take a look at me more. And then you have your 20-minute recruiting package. And then the serious recruiters will then subscribe to Hudl to look at the full body of work around that. So, yeah, it's like, and our athletes have taught us this, the recruiters have taught us there's a different type of highlight reel, if you will. One is to build a brand, build the excitement, but it's good to bring your body of work as a recruiting package as well. And that's any sport, right? That's the beauty. It's any sport.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great example. So your VP of media, Hudl has changed from, being this awesome tool that we can use as coaches and players, but from again, back to we're like wannabe acquired people here. From a business perspective, you've got this audience of people who are watching games, right? Often parents, family watching local games. Maybe they can't go to the road game, so they tune in on Hudl to watch. And you guys are now leveraging that as a media opportunity, right? Discuss that from a business perspective.
Yeah, I'll go back to the cameras, and when we started rolling out the cameras, this is pre-COVID, and we knew at some point we might want to broadcast the content from those cameras, not just the coach, the athletes, but potentially to the fans. And we built back then sort of like an easy button, boop, you publish to YouTube or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And COVID pushed the demand for high school live content pretty fast forward. And grandma can't go, doesn't want to go. The parents still a little nervous about going. And so then we knew, and the coaches and athlete directors like, hey, can you make the easy button for us and just live stream those games within our Hudl fan experience? So I can just point there and say, here's where it is if you can't make it to the game. One of the cool things I believe that we learned, I mean, we knew, but we accelerated that learning is, Friday Night Lights. It's at Friday night at 7 p.m. But that freshman B volleyball game, guess when that is? That's at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. Guess what the parents are doing? They're working, right? Working. And so to be able to not only democratize sport within a high school, you're also democratizing the fan experience to where that grandma and that parent can watch their child at Tuesday at 4 p.m. And that's exciting, right? And so over time, Coach Duff.
Oh, yes. So, sorry to interrupt you, Adam, but the Hudl fan, just to make sure I have this right. So if you have a kid who's on the team and it's on that Hudl roster, then you have access to Hudl fan, for no cost, and then you can go on the app on your computer or whatever, and you can watch those games, for free whenever they're being recorded. Is that right?
You nailed it, right? If you just it's like usually the athlete points to where it is on Hudl fan, but if you just search for your high school and Hudl, again, in almost every high school is on Hudl, then you'll get right to that school page, and that school page will have either usually the highlights of the last week and or the upcoming live game, and or buy a ticket to the actual game that's coming up this Friday or that Tuesday. And so what that allowed us to do over the last 2 years, we went from, let's say 2.5, probably 0 games that we helped power live to over 1 million. So the platform live streamed 1 million games. Not everyone's a Super Bowl, but again, for that Tuesday, 4 p.m. volleyball match, it's a Super Bowl to somebody, right? And so it's important. And what's cool about that is we're able to bring all that together in one experience for potentially a brand. And I'll use an example of T-Mobile. T-Mobile's got this really cool program. It's called Friday Night 5G Lights, and they're investing in rural and small town America. And as you can imagine, pretty big football's pretty big, pretty popular in small town in every community, but particularly in small towns. And what we've done with them is almost created a rural America a high school sports platform for them to invest in, to connect with all of those football games, all of those football athletes, all of those football fans, because they have this really cool program where they give back to over 40 schools and invest into their athletic department, to where they just announced this high school out of Arkansas that just won $1 million. They get Gronk's sort of seal of approval on improving the gymnasium, but there are 39 other schools that got investment grants to help improve their athletic department. So that's a kind of a cool way to your question. Long story answer, Dave. But when you're able to bring all that fan experience together, prior to this, T-Mobile would have to go to 6,000 schools and, hey, can I communicate through the gymnasium placard, right? Now you can just do it in one boom, right? And really sort of accelerate that where they want to invest in small towns.
It's really cool. It's a great idea. It's fun to see. I mean, obviously, we're big high school athletics dorks. We love it. We love the sense of community. I mean, that's why we started this Run TMC thing a couple of years ago, is we wanted to celebrate the local community, past, present. So what you're doing with Hudl is really cool. Hudl's not a sponsor. We're just, we just like what you're doing. And Adam, we like you. So yeah. Before we move on, because we can talk to Adam for Duff, do you have any final Hudl related questions for our VP of Media guru, Adam Gouttierre?
Well, I do have a lot of questions, but they're pretty detail oriented. And I think maybe what I'll do is, offline, send some follow-up questions. But I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of how I could use Hudl as a coach, and definitely interested in becoming more facile. And anyway, but this has been really helpful to talk to someone who's been on the inside. I love the acquired approach, and I had no idea of the origin story. So very cool.
Yeah, and Coach Duff, the secret sauce to Hudl is our customer success team, right? Because they're the ones that tell us, here, we need to fix this, and this. We need to do this and this. But they will, and we'll go offline, but they'll proactively help you think through how to maximize the platform on behalf of your athletes. And so,
well, funny you said that, because as we were talking, I noticed that I received an email from Ryan Hitz at Hudl, and it's Hudl Titan Sports Performance Tracking. So I haven't read it because I've been focused on this interview, but it's funny you say that.
It's good. Well, yeah, the little AI, they figured it out that they're here to help you.
All right, we're gonna shift gears, Adam, for a few minutes here. Indulge us before we get to the vaunted crunch time, which I know you're ready for. So totally separate from Hudl and completely coincidental, Duffy's brother Chris, as we've mentioned Chris Bauer numerous times, he was a guest on this podcast. He's an incredible writer. He was a writer for Sports Illustrated for many years. He's a journalism professor at UC Berkeley. He's writing books. He's just a great human and just a super talented journalist. He wrote an article. Was it 2013, Adam?
It was, yes.
2013, 2014, about a American named Tom Gouttierre, who grew up in Ohio, joined the Peace Corps, went to Afghanistan. I'm going to have you tell the story, but basically he wrote this incredible article. It's called The Wizard of Kabul. Kabul? How do I pronounce it?
Yeah.
Kabul. Wizard of Kabul.
Yeah.
And Tom went on to just have an incredible experience in Afghanistan, and he became a basketball coach over there and ended up coaching the national team. And it's a wonderful article. I reread it. I've read it, 5 times over the last 10 years. As I reread it this time, I was thinking, how is this not a movie? I don't know. Maybe it'll become one. But Adam, discuss, if you can, in a few minutes, your dad's story, and then the article, and just talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great article. It's because of Duffy's brother Chris, right? Chris, I still think is the favorite son in the Gouttierre family because of how he how well he sort of translated that experience in Sports Illustrated. But it's a really, I'm proud of my parents. It's a really fun American story in that Kennedy had his Peace Corps speech, asked not what you can do for your country, asked what you can do for your country. And they signed up the Peace Corps, and they didn't know where they get sent. They got sent to Afghanistan in the early 60s, and boom, they're there. And yeah, he just started helping out, volunteering on a high school basketball team. My parents would teach English to the Afghans, and just used old CYO, small town Ohio sort of guidelines, right? Wouldn't say it was that robust in his thinking, but basketball, it's a great story, and it's a story about basketball, right? And it's a story about basketball going global, and it's a story about how an American connected with different culture through sport, and how he taught people about life through sport, and that how he used sport to advance them, and even himself, because they were successful in high school, that they would beat the local college team to the point where the king noticed this and said, "Would you be the head of the national team?" Right, and that's kind of the beauty of the sport. One of my favorite parts. There's there's a lot of favorite parts of the story, but one of my favorite parts is out of the blue, he's sending writing snail mail.
Yeah.
This is the late 60s, to whom? Some guy in UCLA called John Wooden, and writing, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm doing, I got this part-time job. And who writes back? John Wooden. He's got some other things he's doing back in the late 60s, early 70s, but he's writing back to this young dude in Kabul, Afghanistan, on motion offense and how to break the press, right? So that's a cool one. And then the other really cool one is, it's right, I think, after the Knicks, right around their Knicks made their championship run, and a future presidential candidate and semi-MVP, Bill Bradley, this is great, right? Just takes the summer off and shows up in Afghanistan, and asked my dad if he could show him the ropes in Kabul, Afghanistan. So they'd go up on these trips in the hinterlands and dance to Elvis Presley with world tribes folks, all because of basketball, right? And it's sort of the beauty of basketball being a connective tissue. Don't need language, don't need other things. Just that beautiful round sport, that orb that connected a lot of people.
There's one great detail in the article that I noticed in rereading it, is that your dad made fun of Bill Bradley that summer for being a bit pear-shaped, because he kind of had lost his diet just a little bit over the summer after having a successful year.
Yeah, and actually, I talked to my dad about this too. Like, they still communicate about once a year, and it's because of Chris and his writing of that story. And I'm sure my dad, he can needle you, but I'm sure he's needling old Senator Bradley about how pearish he might be.
It's just an incredible story. So we will put the link to the story in the show notes, and we'll try to get some, if we haven't already, get some commentary from Chris about it. But an incredible read, really inspiring, and just a cool way. I mean, it reminds me, Adam, we had a guy on our podcast who's a professor at NYU who wrote a book called How Basketball Can Save the World. And this, I want to send this to him. It's a great combination of all the things you talked about. It has it's politics, it's culture, it's basketball, it's leadership, it's teaching, it's dealing with adversity, being in a new place. Just a really neat story, and your dad's such an inspiration. Very cool.
That's nice. But I think it's why we're talking here, is how beautiful sport is. And sport is such a connective tissue, not only within communities and neighborhoods, but across the globe, right? And again, you don't need to speak a specific language. You can talk about Lionel Messi to any sports fan in any country, right? You can talk about Dave's lack of three-point shooting skills, and they get it in any country, right? Sport is such a great unifier. It's one of the reasons why I value working at Hudl, right? It's because you get to think about sport all day long.
Beautiful. Aside from my three-point shooting lack of prowess.
Duffy, I didn't know we were going to go deep on that, but I'm kind of glad, right? That we it's an expose, right?
Exactly right.
I've got to come to Dave's defense. Dave in a gym on his own in a shooting competition is a really, really good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
He
That
really
matters.
is. He really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
am
for sure. That's for sure. And film don't lie. I'm sure you've captured all of it, right? And so it'd be good as a follow up to get to enjoy in that skill.
So my old coach, Adam, used to call me a 5 o'clock shooter. So if the game's at 7, man, I'm really good at 5 o'clock when nobody's in the gym. But at 7:15, don't let me shoot. Okay. Let's
I've
get
never
to
heard
crunch.
that, Dave. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep. Thank you, Jonas Honick. Okay. Let's get to crunch time. Adam is a Detroit sports apologist. To the point, Duffy, I don't know if you noticed this, but
an enthusiast too. Yeah.
apologist and enthusiast. He was late
Who's
to
got the best
my.
record in the NBA right now, or second best?
It's see, this is what happens. So Adam was late to my birthday because he was watching the Tigers Mariners game down the street at, I don't know, Perry's forever.
15 innings. That 15 inning game.
15 inning one. I'm sorry. He's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Adam, favorite basketball player of all time?
Oh, I go back and forth between Isaiah and Ben Wallace because of those two championship teams, but I've got more Ben Wallace paraphernalia than Isaiah. So it's Ben Wallace.
Okay. So have you watched what's the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance? Have you watched The Last Dance?
Oh, I refuse to because I'm a bad boys. And if by watching that would acknowledge the Bulls. So I refuse to watch that. Sorry.
There's a lot of Isaiah hate in that one.
Yeah, he doesn't get enough. I mean, I'm not gonna open a can of worms, but Jordan kind of screwed him, right? Definitely screwed him on the Olympics, and for his size, Isaiah was such a warrior, right? Going up against all those folks. He got his buddy Lambeer behind him. God, I love those names. Sorry you didn't ask, but the last time I cried at a sporting event was when Johnny Most and Larry Bird stole the ball from Isaiah. That was sad.
Duffy, any commentary on Isaiah Thomas or Ben Wallace?
Who had the better hair of those two?
Oh,
in your opinion?
When I got the Fear of the Fro, that's when I got the Fear of the Fro shirt, right? And so I always like to know if Ben was going to go kind of depressed or fro out, right? And so Fear of the Fro, Benoit.
Okay.
Free throwing. I like it.
And if you didn't ask, but when I don't know if you've seen early pictures of Dave, but there's a player called Kelly Tripucka, and Kelly Tripucka from the 80s had this flowing mane that almost looked lioness, but it was like, I don't know how he got that thing going. It kind of reminds me of Dave in some of those early pictures that we saw at the 50th birthday party.
Yeah, I rocked the long hair at some point. Not long, but it was mullet adjacent, I would say.
Yeah.
Tripucka that's a good name.
Yeah.
Were you ever headband, Dave? Did you ever go headband in a game?
I never went headband in a game, no.
Yeah.
I didn't have that kind of riz. Okay, Adam, all-time Pistons lineup. I know Isaiah and Ben are on there.
Yeah, so I'm going to run Ben as my 5, a small 5, but he would do that back in the day, right? And I got to have oh man, I got to have Isaiah and Joe as the 1-2, Joe Dumars as the 1-2, right?
Of course.
And I got to have my enforcer at the 4 with Lambeer. And so who's my 3? And I should say Grant Hill, but I'm not, just because he didn't win one. I'm actually going to go with a wild card, Tayshaun, and go with Tayshaun was my 3 because of that. If you all remember when he stuffed Reggie Miller on that out of nowhere block shot, right?
Of course.
That kind of is great. But man, what if I put the Worm at number 3? That would have been crazy to have Worm, Lambeer, and Benoit as your 3, 4, 5. How do you score on that?
That's
tough.
tough.
You could go 3 guards with Chauncey.
He's got a little bit of a problem right now. He needs to kind of address.
Just a little one, yeah.
I don't know.
We're not talking Chauncey.
Everything he did was pure. I don't know now.
Okay. One, I'm surprised Rip Hamilton was not on that list.
Yeah, but I
that's
just
okay.
There's the gentleman Joe Dumars and Isaiah as a 1-2 punch, man. It's just sort of like it's like Whitaker and Trammell, right? I can't separate those guys.
Yep. No, totally. Great Great battery down there. Okay. Side note question. Cade Cunningham. Is Cade Cunningham on the trajectory of being an all-time great for the Pistons, or is it too early?
No, his trajectory is great, and it's back to like thinking about Isaiah and Billups, right? Just a different sort of modern star who can bring the ball up with that level of size, right? And he doesn't default to triple doubles, but it's like it's always in the game, and to be able to run that offense like that from that perspective is sort of stunning. What I'm really excited about, though, is the rest of that crew from Holland to Ausur, that it feels like kind of Worm, Benoit, aggressive bad boy defense that we haven't had in a while. And it's like, man, we might have bad boy defense part 3. And that gets you excited, right? And then, but to have Cade being the leader on all that and letting the rest of the team, and Duren, man, Jesus, have you seen Duren go? He's the most underrated center, I think, in the league. And they're running pick and rolls like it's easy peasy, your old buddy Nash and Stoudemire, right? They're running it like that. So long story short, the trajectory is great. More importantly, what they're building together, it could be Bad Boys 3.
Okay. Adam's excited, Duffy. Adam, your favorite gym in the world? Basketball gym.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's kind of cool, right? When we were did the new Hudl, or the Hudl headquarters about 6 years ago, we got old bleachers from an old sort of French Lick gymnasium in rural Indiana, and just to kind of see that stuff. But the one I kind of remember, it's been a long time, is Allen Fieldhouse for KU, Kansas University. And it just sort of like, and you know me, we're kind of, the more old school, the better, right? And it's just sort of like, oh, Namesmith was here, right? And it's sort of kind of stinky, snug, and but just you're right there. It's that was the first. I think about Allen Fieldhouse. That was a good experience.
Okay, so you're a Nebraska native. You spent time in Seattle. You worked at Microsoft. You played tennis with Bill Gates. Bill thought you had a really good backhand, I remember.
Still do.
You still do, I'm sure. You lived in the Bay Area, obviously, for business school. Rank the Bay Area in terms of dive bars, music scene, the seedy underbelly that you like to reside in.
I mean, am I supposed to go deep on nights that Dave took me to the Tenderloin and had with Becker at all? I mean, I love the Bay Area, and at that point in my life, we were just come from Nebraska, right? So you step off a cold winter Nebraska into the beauty of the Bay Area, particularly Berkeley, and you just overlook that whole environment. It was really magical. I missed that place. And then when you start going underneath and understanding all the history and go on trips with new buddies, new friends, I love Berkeley. I love the Bay Area. And I love when we'd go down those late night dive bar scenes.
Beautiful.
It's a magical place, the Bay Area, and I'm envious of both of you, and I miss it.
Awesome. Adam, this has been so fun. Thank you for the time. Congrats on an incredible run with Hudl that will continue. We're excited to see where you guys take this company. Duffy, any last words for our friend Adam?
This has been great. Thank you so much for your time, Adam, and for sharing the Hudl experience. And hope to see you again before Dave's 60th birthday.
I was just going to say, we should do it more, not every sort of decade here. But thank you both for, again, the power of hoops, right? As a connective tissue, that's what you're doing, right? You're connecting people around something that we're all passionate about, and it connects a lot of people, and that's really cool.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, Run TMC, it's Duff. Hey, I wanted to let you know that the Run TMC podcast episodes are now available on YouTube. And for certain episodes, such as this, we also have the video. So if you go to the Run TMC podcast on YouTube, you can check out all the prior episodes in audio, and then our coaches roundtable, as well as this interview on video as well as audio. One player control. This episode 6 of season 3, we had some rather poor static audio quality at the very end of the video, so we do apologize for that. We've scrubbed it right out of this audio, so all good there. And before we close this episode and move on to Stroke 9, another thank you to our sponsors, Encore Custom for custom apparel on 4th Street in San Rafael, and also on the web at encorecustom.com. And also our friends at the Hub, another shout out to the Elk Burger Special. This is directly from Rebecca. Super lean protein topped with caramelized onions, sauteed mushrooms, point raised blue cheese crumbles, butter lettuce, and house-made sriracha chili mayo sauce. You can also get the elk patty as protein on any of the wonderful salads they serve at the Hub. So go visit the Hub, and thank you to our sponsors for their continued support.
Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says,
Hey, dude, you too must be from Marin.